Hey guys, what is going on? Back here for another game review, and I do apologize that it's been a long time since I made a video because I've been recovering ever since I got tested positive for COVID, but I'm feeling a whole lot better. But anyways, this is a video that admittedly has been taking a little bit more time than expected, but only because Gary and I wanted to explore every inch of this game possible. And this is also Gary's most anticipated game of the year, but of course we are talking about Ghost of Tsushima today. The two of us have been waiting for this game for such a long time, ever since it was announced at E3, I think, what, 2 years ago or something like that?
I think 2017.
It was either one of those years, but I remember that the gameplay demo that they showed us just blew us away so much. Finally got our hands on the game, and before we continue, first of all, as I've mentioned, Mr. Garrison is joining with me to get into the plot of the game. So this is basically a more of a fantasy take of the Mongol invasion of Tsushima Island, and you play as Jin Sakai, who has been taken into by his uncle because of certain events to which I don't want to get into because of spoilers. And basically, after Jin Sakai has been presumed dead, he comes back as a samurai that becomes the Ghost of Tsushima when he has to essentially bend the rules of what he has been taught by his uncle. Getting into everything I liked, I gotta say, Gary, this game was terrific.
When I first heard this game, when I first saw the presentation, just the sequence alone, seeing the fields, the trees, the skies, just seeing Sakai riding his horse through the meadows,
Yeah.
just seeing how this opening sequence was transpiring, seeing the minor detailed gameplay of fighting against the Mongols. I just had a feeling that this game was up to something interesting. When it came down to the first duel and just the whole landscape fitting in within the mood of that particular sequence.
Right, yeah.
I fell in love with this game immediately.
By the way, speaking of which, you mentioned the opening credit sequence. That is, without a doubt, one of the best opening credits revealed I have seen in a video game in a long time. Which, by the way, I actually want to play it for you guys, because if you're on the fence buying this game, I'm going to show this to you right now. So roll this clip really quick.
Fence my aching ass. It's a must needed guaranteed to play this game. This was something that was not only an inspiration, but it was also an adaptation based off of legit actual stories. The real battle of Tsushima, to finally release this game and for it to be out right now, and the way that the criticism that this game is getting is just absolutely astonishing. And if there's another thing that I was able to observe from Sucker Punch, is that they took heavenly inspiration from Akira Kurosawa's film. So basically, if you view this movie and do a side-by-side comparison, I'm not just talking about the story, but I'm talking about the way that the characters look in terms of the whole entire scenery,
Right.
that they're dressing, their lifestyle, the way that they're fighting. If you look at that and compare that to one of Akira Kurosawa's movies, you can see that Sucker Punch took so much heavenly inspiration from this guy and putting in so much love into that pain, homage, and dedication, not only to this director, but also turning this into their own.
Something I do want to add as well is that when it comes to the plot, right from the beginning and the opening sequences, they are high stakes because there is a certain villain in the game to which, historically, it's really cool that they put this lineage into the game in order to raise the high stakes from the very beginning. Now, I do have a little bit of flaw to mention about that, once we get into our cons, but I thought for the most part, especially when it gets to that second act, this game in terms of story really picks up and the pace just goes full front, especially in that third act.
Just from the opening sequence alone, where you meet our enemy, as he's called the Khan. Once you meet this particular guy and you learn your objective, what you need to fulfill, the people that you meet in order to help you fight off against him, to reclaim your castles, reclaim your land, and help peasants live a civilized, normal, proper life from the Mongols. It's just something that was just unbelievable. First one though, people might say it is a little slow, but here's the thing of why it is slow. It is a buildup. I got exactly what the game was doing from the very beginning. The reason why it started off slow is because it wanted to introduce you to who you're working with, what their story is about, and it's just something that is a baby step developing process as it begins. Not just the main story, but the side story. But you are building up not only your attributes, but you're also building up learning all these characters that you are working with. And that is one thing I love about the first act specifically, is that you are learning who these people are, what the motive is of what's driving them to get revenge. And that's one of the key elements I picked up of this game, is that revenge is one of the biggest themes throughout the whole entire production.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Something I do want to talk about. You were mentioning the world. This is without a doubt probably the most fully realized open world game I have ever played. I mean, there have been some terrific open world games out there, especially in the past couple of years, like the second Red Dead Redemption, and if I'm a Second Son, there's also the new God of War game. There have been plenty of great fully realized open world games, but the way how Sucker Punch does it with Ghost of Tsushima, it was unlike anything I had ever seen. The attention to detail from the world building, from the characters, and how you interact with the environments, it's just absolutely astounding. And astounding, I think, is an understatement on my end, at least.
Sucker Punch wanted to work on something to make a scenery that's just absolutely beautiful. Now, open world environments is something that, for me, on a personal note, is something that I hardly see that much. I mean, if you're going to play an open world game, it's got to be something special. For this particular case, is that since there's 3 different territories that is on your map, but here's the thing though. Each territory that you go through and explore, there is so much to just digest, from a beautiful summer area to a cool, calm, blizzardy, snowy area. Different sceneries like that with the different seasons and how it changes from one to another, to where you get like fucking thunderstorms to a sunset to a sunny sky, leaves falling. There's just so many areas throughout the game that when you are playing it throughout your playthrough, you cannot help but go into photo mode and just take a beautiful picture of each area.
Man. Photo mode, dude. Speaking of which, by the way, to everyone watching this, I'm gonna show you guys a couple of photos that Gary and I took. I mean, Gary took a shit ton of photos.
I took nearly 30 fucking photos.
I rarely play with photo modes in video games. I mean, I did play with photo mode in Spider-Man. I also played a lot with Last of Us Part 2. But this photo mode is honestly the most in-depth photo mode I have ever seen. I mean, like, you control the color grading, particle effects, the wind direction. You can have like cinema bars. You can only change the time of day down to the minute. It is that much in depth. You can get some cinematic quality shots. I mean, if you want to try and get a Kurosawa shot, you can go right ahead with this one. And speaking of, by the way, the world in this game, the storyline of the game is very good. Do not get me wrong. But throughout the game, this is a world that throughout riding, you will find yourself just getting lost in this world, and honestly in a very good way. And a lot of the time, instead of doing the main quest, I found myself just exploring, looking at all the beautiful vistas.
I agree. I seriously agree, because the thing is that, despite the main story, that when you are starting off, folks, this game will keep you busy. Even if you're on your way doing a side quest or whatever, you find yourself doing different tales, helping others out, fighting against Mongols on the road, but mostly you're just riding around, just viewing the scenery, because the game is just so fucking beautiful.
And not to mention in terms of aesthetics and in terms of color palette, Ghost of Tsushima, without a doubt, is the most beautiful looking game I've ever seen. I mean, the footage you're seeing here is captured from a PS4 Pro. The footage I was able to capture, I was just like, how in the hell is a PS4 able to run this thing?
Now, speaking of scenery, there's one thing I want to talk about that involved with the scenery itself. And this is something that is just absolutely mesmerizing, and it helps really fit the mood of just calm, peace, relax. Now, that is the score.
Oh god, the score for this game is absolutely amazing.
The music, just the whole entire soundtrack alone, everything. each track, it's a different mood. You got something that's peaceful, something that's meditating, something that's calm, something that's just puts you in a relaxing state of mind, something that's hypnosis, something that is powerful, emotional, fucking getting ready for war. There's so, each
Oh.
score in this game has a mood.
When you're in the battle against this, like you're like a sword, yeah. Every time you get into a battle, when you're doing stealth missions, you're just like doing like this nice little drum beat to it. When you get into the more sad scenes, you hear this like how like the violin start kind of going. Like each specific thing has a different tone, and how they were able to do this was absolutely brilliant.
Speaking of things that are interesting, gameplay.
The gameplay of the game is, to say the least. Now, this game was addicting, not just from like exploring the world and doing all the side quests, getting to all the shrines, the hot springs, the bamboo strikes, and all that. The combat itself. This is what I'll say about the combat. At first, you might get your ass kicked a lot, like I did. I feel like I got my ass kicked a lot, but it's a game that the more you play and the more you get accustomed to your skills, when you get, you know, the water stance, the wind stance, the moon stance, and you keep upgrading your skills, you'll go from a person that probably, you know, you'll keep like being up around, but the moment you get used to your skills, you will go around slicing and dicing so many enemies. I mean, you'll feel like a badass samurai by the end of it all.
The game does travel back in time, and it does give you proper, exclusive, in-depth tutorials on specific basic fighting combos that you do, and you use that to your advantage. And yes, you do get a bunch of different various stances throughout the game. And here's the thing though, yes, does the game require a little bit of timing and learning?
Yeah.
It does. Here's the thing though, each enemy requires a different stance that not only do you have to learn, but you have to upgrade. Because the thing is that each enemy that you are facing against, whether it's like a common enemy, you got to learn how they function with that specific stance that they go for. It gives you different things that you need to learn. Now, in terms of all your maneuvers, not just your slicing and dicings that you're doing and cutting everybody, each upgrade that you get more and more satisfying, outstanding combos and kills that is just fantastic. And here's the thing though, these specific ones, you learn through the mythical tales that you get.
Dude, the mythical tales, besides the main story, once it picks up, at least for me, at least halfway through the second act, the mythic tales were my favorite parts of the entire game. Holy crap.
I adored the hell out of the mythical tales. I thought I would never come across a game where it'll give you legit, actual legendary tales, and this game was... It grew my fucking love and excitement for this game a lot more because of that. And thanks to these tales that you follow like a treasure hunt type of way,
yeah,
you learn these different things through each of the battles.
A lot of people have been saying that the combat is a lot like Sekiro. I'm gonna add on to that. I mean, now in terms of the Sekiro, this is what I'll say about that. It's more of the parries than anything, if you ask me, because Sekiro requires you to learn your parries. Like that to an extent, however, I'll add on top of that saying there's a lot of the Batman Arkham Asylum games, the way how you switch from enemy to enemy. And now also to an extent, maybe a little of Assassin's Creed, just a tad bit, but how it's able to incorporate those styles of gameplay but make it its own thing, I thought that they did a really good job of making the combat feel pretty much seamless for them, for I'd say 90% of it.
I'm on the disagreement on that part where it feels like Sekiro, because it feels like it is its own actual gameplay stance, which is very incredible. You get a bow and arrow, which is absolutely great. You get yourself the short bow and you get the long bow. Now, my favorite bow is the long one.
Oh yeah.
Once you accustom that, you get to do such amazing long distance shot, not just with the regular silent arrows, but with the exploding arrows with the longbow. Once you custom your bow and arrow and you're going to different areas to take out the enemies, if they're on top of those pedestals or anywhere, my advice is take the archers out first, because when you're in battle trying to clear off an enemy, those archers are going to be a pain in the ass. Even though they're easy to kill, but again, when you're trying to take out the bigger enemies, it is a pain in the ass to put up with the archers, so definitely take them out first before you go in and start killing everybody.
The way how they're able to expand the combat, you don't just have a sword, you don't just have the stances, you don't just have the long bow or the short bow, you have short little daggers to throw, you have sticky bombs, you have wind chimes, so that whenever you're trying to do stealth, to which I'll get into that a little bit on mine at least. But you also have a little smoke bombs, so you can pretty much like Batman your way out of certain situations.
They gave you just variety of things. Now, speaking of variety, now this is where it's gonna be on the opposite end because I'm much more fascinated with this particular element. I'm actually a fan of the stealth because here's the thing that I like about the stealth is that even though it may come off weak, but here's the thing though, you got to take your settings and use it to your advantage. They give you tall grass that you can use. You can climb, crouch, and be quiet as you possibly can. In each area where you want to perform stealth, you got to get creative. You got to get creative in certain areas with the particular platforms that you are working with. If you're swinging or if you're climbing or jumping, whatever it is, you got to get creative with your stealth in order to take out the enemies one by one if you're going to be going for that particular goal of killing them all by stealth.
If we may move on to negatives, one of the negatives I do have on man is that, like we did mention this beforehand, after that incredible, I would say 15 minutes or so when you're able to go off on your own and do your own things. I mean, right when it does the Ghost of Tsushima logo, I was just like, holy crap, this is going to be amazing. I do understand what you're saying of how it's trying to, get you set up. I didn't find myself emotionally attached to the characters until halfway through the second act. I just didn't find myself getting fully really into it. I found myself doing the side quests of the Mythic Tales a lot more. But when it came to the actual main storyline, it wasn't until halfway through the second act that personally for me, I was just like, okay, it's picking up for me.
In terms of the characters specifically, I'm kind of in agreement and I'm kind of not.
Okay.
The agreement part that I am with is that in terms of emotionally getting attached to, it's a process.
Yeah.
First, because there's like what 8 or 9 chapters for the side for.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, yes.
Do they give you their story? Yes, they do. But here's the thing: it all depends on how you react to it.
Now, the one thing I will bring up, you did mention this earlier, for me it was the stealth. Now, I'm not saying that the stealth was bad or anything. I just think that in terms of gameplay aspects, it was definitely for me the weakest, mainly because the enemy AI during some of the stealth, I thought they were such idiots. Like, I could kill somebody maybe a couple of feet away from another person, they would not notice a damn thing. I just feel like that the enemy AI could have maybe been a little bit better in terms of stealth. I will say though, I liked how they did implement the stealth with the narrative. I thought that was really cool, but I just feel like that they could have implemented a tad bit more with the stealth, just a little bit more with it. Now, this is more of a nitpick on my end. The combat with the cameras especially, sometimes I felt it could be a little bit of a nuisance, but that's more of a nitpick because for the most part, I was able to, get pretty well with the combat, but there were some times where I thought the camera did get in the way. One more thing I do want to talk about as well. The Kurosawa mode is absolutely brilliant. I love the Kurosawa mode, and you can choose to listen to the game in Japanese voice acting, and the Japanese voice acting is freaking fantastic. But when it came to the lip syncing, once again, this is more of a nitpick. The lip syncing isn't quite there. I mean, there are some spots where you can sort of see it, but a lot of the time I was just like, yeah. And knowing that this game is taking a lot of inspiration from Kurosawa's films, I do wish that they put a little bit more time into the Japanese lip sync, but in terms of the nitpicks, that's really all I have with the rest of that.
I mean, I have nothing against the lip syncing because games in the past have had that type of thing, but it wasn't really much of a bother me. Now, this ain't much of a negative or nitpick, but it's more of like an improvement. I kind of wish the platforming part was a little bit better.
I can agree with that.
I mean, it was nothing bad or anything. It was basic platforming, but I just thought that it could have been a little bit more, adding a little bit more obstacles. But yeah, other than that, I honestly don't have anything bad.
So getting into our overall, Scary, speak your overall and give us your final review score.
When I said it about this game, I was looking forward to it, but I didn't say I was going to love it right away. I was just looking forward to it because it was a topic that I'm absolutely fascinated with. But when I started playing this game has everything that I love. In terms of moods, it has some happy moments, it has sad, it has war, it has anger, it has revenge, it has some comical, it has suspense, it has fear, it has hope, it has so much shit to it that it's hard to even, I'm saying this in a good way, it's hard to take it all in one setting because it goes through so many developing processes throughout the story. In terms of your characters, I love how in-depth detailed stories that they have. I absolutely love the scenery, I love the score, the gameplay is just something absolutely fantastic and addicting. I've just been in love with this game. I'm still playing it right now.
It's a terrific game,
folks. This game is an easy 10 out of 10 for me. Love the hell out of this game so much. Even when I was playing it, I've been praising it so much. And I hardly ever praise a game this much. This game deserved all the praise that can get, at least from me. And I think it deserves almost any recognition that it gets.
In terms of story, even though it didn't quite get there for me until the middle of the second act, I thought that the story for the line for this game was really, really well done. The scenery for this game, the aesthetics, one of the most beautiful looking games I have ever seen. One of the most fully realized open worlds I have ever seen in a video game. The combat is exhilarating, especially when you get near the end of the game. The music is absolutely beautiful, and by the end I was like, damn, well done, Sucker Punch. So all in all, for me, I'm gonna give this game a 9 out of 10. I thought it was an absolutely phenomenal title with some flaws here and there on my end, but nonetheless, guys, if you have a PS4 and you love open world games, what in the hell are you waiting for? I know we're in the middle of a pandemic, but go out and buy this damn game or digitally download it right now. Thank you all so much for watching our review for Ghost of Tsushima. Now to pass over to my good pal Mr. Garrison, I want to say I'm having a hell of a time discussing these games with you, and I'm looking forward to talking more games with you, especially for one little game coming up in the next 2 months. But anyways, before we let these good folks go, where can they find you out there?
Yeah, you can find me in the bathroom.
I was gonna say the bar, but that works too.
Find me on social media. YouTube channels, NG2C Network is the main, Mr. Garrison 96 is the second one. You can find me all there.
Alrighty guys, well thank you so much once again for watching Gary and I's review of Ghost of Tsushima. If you want to see more just like this one, please hit that like button, also subscribe, and do not forget to hit that notification bell whenever the next video goes live. If you want to see any of our previous 2 reviews, please click on the left or right sides of the screen, of course. Until our next review, we'll see you guys next time. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you guys next time.